Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor Podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. I just wanted to talk to you guys about environmental chemicals. This is something that recently I've become much more aware of, and I'm more concerned about it, I think, than almost anything else that I've addressed with people that have thyroid dysfunction and autoimmunity in the past, because I think this is something that is very difficult for us to identify. The testing is... there's some things that we can test very precisely for, but with the 85,000 industrial and environmental chemicals that are out there, we have very limited testing of these things. What's even more alarming is the fact that we don't have much information on what a lot of these chemicals do. We don't know how they disrupt our physiology. There's some animal studies, but many of these products were grandfathered in under regulatory laws, or their safety has been placed upon the manufacturers. And it's very, very debatable as to, whether or not they're safe to use. And it's just become a huge, huge problem. There's so many studies now that the limited studies that have been done on some, just very few of these environmental chemicals, many of them have very significant physiological impacts on endocrine function, which the endocrine system is your hormonal system. And this is, these are primarily done in animal models because, quite frankly, there's no way that we're going to be able to do this in human models. No one's going to allow us to expose humans to these levels. And, so just know that what I'm referring to is many of these are animal-based studies. Now, some of these, when they're looking at like quantities of these chemicals in human tissues, it might be referring to a blood sample or a tissue sample or a cord blood sample, because there have been some studies done on women and their cord blood to see what may be passed on to children in utero. So there's just numerous studies on some of these chemicals that show that these are endocrine system disruptors. They disrupt our hormonal physiology. They are immune disruptors, so they can affect the immune system. They can stimulate the immune system. Is more than anything, is what we're finding is that a lot of these chemicals will bind to human tissues, and literally, when they bind to your tissues, they cause your immune system to no longer recognize the tissue that they're bound to, because now it's not just you, it's this chemical plus your tissue, and your immune system doesn't recognize that. So it reacts to it as if it's foreign, and it can cause, and we believe that it can promote autoimmunity, and it absolutely stimulate an immune response, which is definitely not something that we want to occur when we're trying to dampen autoimmunity. I find that whenever I help people to identify, the primary drivers of autoimmunity that we can test for, which are food sensitivities, pathogens, and when I say pathogens, I'm referring to basically bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungal exposure. And so that's the grouping of pathogens. And then the third thing are going to be environmental chemical reactivity. So we can check for immune reactivity to chemicals, but we're checking for maybe 30 of 85,000. So when you look at this problem, guys, we know that it affects so many different things. Neurologically, immunologically, our endocrine system. There have been numerous studies on how just a handful of these chemicals actually affect thyroid hormone physiology. And they literally break it down at every step in the process, just about every step in the process. So this is just we're just being exposed to and understanding the ramifications of some of these chemicals. And all I can tell you is that, it's my opinion, what I've observed clinically, what I see in the literature, what I think is coming is that we are going to find that there's a huge, tsunami of information on these chemicals that we're going to be learning about that is going to just point to more and more problems being produced by them. And we've got to take this very seriously. I think that one of the best things that we can do is to remove these things from our environment, take active steps to individually, remove these things from our environment, and then to actively detoxify our bodies on an ongoing process, as much as we can, a very systematic type of detoxification. And the problem with detoxification and how it's been approached, as I think that it's very significantly misunderstood. It's not being done in a way that I think 98% of in my opinion, 98% of the detoxes out there are just, they're not effective. And probably another 50% are just not safe. Because what they do is they end up, some of the detoxes just open up and, they're focused on just improving liver detoxification systems or improving the rate of the emptying of the colon, or it's like a colon cleanse, which is very downstream. When you look at detoxification, we actually have to go to the tissues of the body where a lot of these chemicals are embedding and binding. And we have to work on actually actively removing the chemicals from the body's tissues. And then through using active binders and through opening up the detoxification pathways like the liver, the kidneys, the lymphatics, the colon, the skin through sweating, then those systems become more effective because they're downstream. We have to go upstream to actually get the chemicals out of the tissues. And I think a lot of detoxification systems only address opening up the downstream pathways. And if they are attempting to remove chemicals or remove metals from the tissues, that they're dangerous because they're not using true binders. So we'll just pull it out of the tissues, in other words, and potentially redistribute it throughout the body. So this is something that, I think is very problematic. So one of the things that I really want to share with you guys today, I kind of got off on this soapbox of some of these problems and just the chemicals in the environment, which is huge. It's a huge, huge issue. Is I really wanted to talk to you guys about a chemical that may be associated with increased breast cancer, rates of breast cancer. And it's really, it's very commonly found in antiperspirants. Because antiperspirants, it's part of like a deodorant. Deodorants and antiperspirants are actually two different things, but a lot of deodorants contain antiperspirants. So they're anti-sweating agents, right? So you put them under your arms and they block and decrease the sweating, that your perspiration under your arm. And some of these antiperspirants contain this chemical that has been shown to inhibit or decrease an enzyme that helps your body to metabolize estrogens. So basically it could increase estrogen levels, which we know that elevated estrogens are not a good thing. They're not. You need balance. And if you have elevated estrogens in the body, that may promote and predispose you to cancer. So the chemical are actually parabens. Now you may have heard about parabens because they have been in the news. They have been discussed as being something that's a potential problem, that's estrogen mimicking, that can create lots of problems. Guys, the parabens, the research that's been done on parabens show that there's a very, very likely a lot of other problems than just what I'm sharing with you today about increasing cancers. There's a lot of other potential problems, how they disrupt your physiology. But one of the things that I really want to share with you the most is to understand that if you haven't and you don't and you're not aware that parabens are problems, you have to make and take active steps to remove these things from your cosmetics and your environment. Okay? Now, whenever people go through our detoxification program, which we only take 30 people per month, because I work with people, guys, in case you're new, and this is your first podcast ever hearing it with me, I only work with people in groups of 30, one group of 30 per month. We go through a detoxification program that's really focused on improving thyroid hormone physiology, but it's appropriate for anyone that's trying to detoxify. We work with a group of 30, and then I work with 1 to 4 people maximum per month, one-on-one. And if you work with me one-on-one, you have to get extensive testing. I don't do much of a trial and error approach at all. We get extensive testing, because I don't have time to work with you one-on-one and go through a lot of trial and error. I would love to do that. And I love that process of investigation. But the reality is that there's just not enough time. I don't have enough time to go through that process with people. So what I wanted to share with you guys is, there are things that you can do on your own. If you want to work with me one-on-one, or if you want to do some things on your own, you need to go to the Environmental Working Group's website, and you need to search out all your cosmetics and everything that you use, your personal care products, to see if they're high in any of these toxic chemicals. The environment, you can go to ewg.org and find out more. And by the way, support them if you can. If you have some money to donate, it's a great group to donate to. They're doing lots of great research. I'm a big advocate of what they're doing because I think it's really helping us, and if they're really advocates for us. So absolutely, environmentalworkinggroup.org, and you can search out a lot of your cosmetics. And there are some good apps out there as well that you can get for your smartphones that can be helpful. But I just wanted to share this with you guys because parabens could be a major, major problem for a lot of different reasons. But if we're applying this in our antiperspirants under our arms, it may be decreasing our body's ability to break down estrogens and promoting cancers. This is especially a problem because they're seen more in the outer quadrant of the breast, which is where you're going to have more exposure to these things. So anyway, I want to share this with you guys because it's super, super important. We've got to get these things out of our environment. We've got to get them out of our bodies through the right detoxification. And if you want to learn more about my detoxification program, you can go to nomoreToxicBody.com, and you can register when the next webinar is coming up. We only have one webinar per month. So that's not always set in stone because if we get a larger class, we only take about 30 people, roughly 30 people. If we get a larger class than that, then we may delay it until 2 months or 3 months because I am not going to be overwhelmed. I am focused on taking a smaller group of people to, improving their health as maximally as possible, rather than trying to work with, 400 or 500 active people that are just working their way through this process. And I would love to be able to do that, guys, but I have to decide, I have to set boundaries, and I can't work 80 hours a week. So we decided, and what I decided was I'm going to work with people in groups, and I'm going to work with very, very few people one-on-one that want to go very, very deep and maximize their health. And by going deep, I mean you're going to get extensive testing. We're going to dig as deep as we can to try to give you the best opportunity to be healthy. So if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, you can go to drbradshuk.com, and you can click on the application for care page to learn more about it. And there should be links in our show notes and whatnot. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me today. I hope this has been informative. And I hope this is helping you guys to be more empowered, to be your own advocates, to take your health back, because it's my mission to help change one person's life at a time so that we can improve your family's quality of life, your communities, and ultimately the world. And I want you guys to be more empowered so that you can be your own advocates and active participants in your healthcare. You can be an actual participant rather than a bystander. Some people are just like, they have no say in their healthcare, and I want that to change. I want us to become educated. So I hope this helps you guys out. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today and listening to me ramble a little bit. I know, get on my soapboxes every now and then, but it's always enjoyable, and I really appreciate you spending your precious time learning from me, and I take that seriously. So I look forward to talking to you guys again on the next podcast. Let us know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshuk.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.